welcome back. Welcome back to the Merge TV, the North American Blockchain Summit. Today we have with us an esteemed goat of cryptocurrency. Today we have Fred Thiel, the CEO of Marathon Digital Holdings. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Great. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So you've got such a storied past, HBS grad, public-private, plenty. How did you got to do the fireside chat with the RFK?
Yep, that was great.
Were you here for Vivek as well?
I was here. I heard Vivek speak. Yeah.
It's just fascinating to see such a plethora of talent here in the Dallas area talking about something that everyone thought was all but dead for quite a while. And your company has made it through. Everyone seems to be hopefully hopeful.
Yeah, it's exciting times. A year ago, July, so a year and a half ago, basically, we had zero hash rate running, and here we are, largest miner of the publicly traded miners from a self-mining perspective. We've now gone global. We have facilities in the UAE and Paraguay and continue to expand. We're focused not just in traditional kind of utility scale grid stability sites, but we're also now doing energy harvesting with methane from landfill gas. We have a bunch of other projects in kind of taking essentially bio-waste and methane, turning that into energy, which we then use to create heat from Bitcoin mining, which we then feed back into the process as low-grade industrial heat. So heating buildings, heating greenhouses, supporting shrimp farms, and all sorts of other production processes. So we view Bitcoin mining as really having an industrial function, which is heat generation.
Sure. Yeah, and heat sink and as you said, stability and stabilizing the power grids.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and so how you mentioned that you're global, basically, right? How was that transition from a mostly like real estate here in the United States to worldwide?
Well, it all comes down to working with the right partners. So whenever you're going to do something new, you ideally want to work with the best people possible in the location where you're going. In the case of UAE, we were going into a country with a very specific set of rules, a specific set of environmental constraints regarding climatology. It's extremely hot, extremely humid. You can't use air-cooled miners. You have to use immersion technology. And then, the only real way to be successful was to partner with the sovereign, who obviously has an ownership interest in the power company, the energy distribution business, and everything else. And so we were able to do a pilot to prove to the sovereign that we could operate in that environment. And we did a 1 megawatt pilot late last year that ran for 100 days before an engineer had to go back on site. And they said, okay, this is the most reliable mining system we've seen. And then we were able to finalize our agreement with them in February of this year. And here we are barely, 8 months later, 9 months later, and we've gone live on our 250 megawatts capacity there. So, fascinating kind of deal. When you look at in the US, that deal would have taken 2 years to do. And then Paraguay, again, kind of a big hydroelectric dam using stranded energy. And we're doing a pilot there. And if that works out well, then we'll grow that to also kind of larger scale.
Sure. So I've been in the industry a long time like you, and I've kind of seen these conversations where like you could have having a conversation with a sovereign government like that is wildly speculative and theoretical. You've been in this a while, where did it break towards like reality versus fantasy? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like where did it feel like there was a breakthrough? Like people, these large organizations took us seriously enough as an industry to even have these conversations about using Bitcoin as a battery and these types of things?
Great question. So I wish I could say we were able to convince them of the benefit of doing Bitcoin mining, but they already were orange-pilled before we even talked to them. So they had done 2 other prior attempts at doing this. And for technological reasons, those deals didn't work out. So they were already orange-pilled. It was just, they already got it. They have 4 gigawatt of power consumption in the summer, 1 gigawatt in the winter. They still need to run all that power because the water desal uses the heat. So all of the arguments around grid stability and stranded energy, they were sold on already.
Okay.
Right. So this is a project which has very defined social benefits, very defined economic benefits, and very defined strategic benefits.
Right.
And so they were looking for the right partner to solve this. They had failed twice, and it was kind of, they had one last chance, one last at bat. And so it went from hypothetical to real when we did the pilot. And when they saw the performance of the pilot, it was, okay, now we not just have faith that you could do this, but we have trust because we've seen the data.
Right.
And then it was all about having a very transparent and very, equal level dialogue with them about everything we were doing. So we were sharing about our technology advancements, our investment in Auradine, which is a US-based miner technology company, which we were very involved in getting off the ground.
I just spoke to him. He was just on my show. Yeah, we just chatted. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's, this industry is really all about how you leverage technology to advance it, right? Because you can only do so many real estate deals around buying power. Now it's advancing to the stage where you have to have a vertically integrated technology stack. You have to be able to operate not just at utility scale with super high efficiency, but also be able to operate at sub-utility scale. So 1 megawatt, 2 megawatt sites. So stuff we're doing with methane gas capture on landfills, the stuff we're doing around energy harvesting, where we're collecting, using, for example, methane or biogas. You feed that into a system that generates heat. The heat generator is a Bitcoin miner.
Yeah.
And you use that heat and feed it back into an industrial process.
That's fast.
Right. And so now you're getting to a place where you're not using parasitic load on the grid. So you're generating your own electricity, and that energy is not costing you anything because you're getting paid to process the material and you're getting paid for the heat.
So I've only heard this level of complex, recapture design. Like I've covered enterprise tech going back to 2009 or so, and only have I heard this like from HP and IBM in their experimental data labs. The HP research center in Palo Alto. So within even enterprise, this is kind of rare to attempt this level of like complex systems. Even so much more so rare in mining. What has been like the driving motivating factor to kind of go for these complex systems? Is it by necessity or by like a mission driven focus that you guys have to really make it as green as possible or something?
Well, we made a commitment 2 years ago that we were going to be fully carbon neutral in our operation. Okay. And we believe that Bitcoin mining can not only be carbon neutral, but carbon negative. And we also believe that Bitcoin mining can be energy neutral, meaning we generate our own energy and we don't have to take load off the grid. We think that solves for all sorts of issues. Also, I've been in tech for 40 years, and some of the first work I did in tech was in the supercomputing world, and the company I worked with at the time was focused on deploying the industrial control systems for CERN in Switzerland, Singer-Link flight simulator for the F-16. So we were doing very, very sophisticated control technology. And as you look at how technology can change industries, it's pretty amazing. I've also spent a lot of time in the industrial automation and process control world through my efforts in IoT, Internet of Things. And, this energy harvesting is the perfect example of that. Maybe it's my Swedish background. We're very focused on the environment and engineering stuff, but we believe that by leading with technology and by leading with a very big focus on green and sustainability, that we're able to differentiate ourselves from everybody else kind of in the industry who's really focused on being big utility scale.
One of the emerging narratives that it's been ruminating around, I think, for a little bit now, but like we've talked about it about 3 or 4 times in the show this week, is the idea that the AI model training system is following a similar track of evolution to Bitcoin data centers. What are your thoughts on that? Like, is that something you guys are looking at? Is that something you're thinking about, or do you disagree with that narrative?
So maybe chalk this up to having all sorts of battle scars from being an early mover in industries. And just before I kind of answer the question, I took a company public back 23 years ago, which was one of the first companies to build embedded communication technologies for IoT systems. So you could essentially connect anything to the internet.
Right.
Right. We built some of that first technology. The company still exists today. Its name is Lantronics. And they still do exactly that. We felt certain in the year 2000 that by 2005, 1 billion devices would be connected to the internet.
I remember that.
Everybody was going to have it, right? Here we are, 2023, almost 2024. And I think people are now saying 50 billion devices, and we're still not there. So these things take time.
Mm-hmm.
The technology goes in waves. You've heard of the theory of S-curve, where
Sure.
you do an initial. So if you look at AI data centers and you look at Bitcoin mining data centers, what do they have in common? There's only one thing: power density.
Right.
Right? Bitcoin mining data centers, interruptible load. You can shut them off at any time.
Right.
If you're running an LLM, you can't shut it off at any time. You need network ping of 35 milliseconds or less. So you need to be close to a point of presence. The design of your data center, in the Bitcoin world, we have tier 0, meaning it's very simple, low complexity. We use containers. We spread containers out over a field. We use immersion technology.
Right.
Sophisticated, but low CapEx. You're talking about something that's, $500,000 a megawatt of infrastructure. An AI data center is 8 to 12 times more expensive to build, just the infrastructure. Now let's start adding H100s. By some people's estimates, you're talking $49 million a megawatt.
Wow.
When you're all in. Now, the H100 is really a first-gen machine. The H200 already exists. The H300 will be announced soon. If you build these data centers and you're stocking them with H100s, expecting to have a 3-year, 4-year contract life when you're a customer, you've got two things working against you. The guy using the H100 today is going to want to run an H200 tomorrow, and they're going to want to run an H300 the year after that. So what's the likelihood they're going to stick around until you get paid back on all the infrastructure you invested in? The next thing is the technology stack in LLMs is changing, so you're now putting vector databases below it. That increases the performance of these LLMs by factors of magnitude. And when you then stack these things, these generative models, and you essentially have them fighting against each other, like GANs work, right?
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, you're speeding up this even more. And while the complexity of the models will continue to grow, GPT-4 was, I think, 4 factors bigger than GPT-3. GPT-5 is about to be announced. And, GPT is effectively writing all the future generations of GPT. The hardware curve has to follow. So as we look at it, we think, initial technology wave, hype cycle, trough of disillusionment, then we go back up and to the right, hopefully. We're still climbing that hype hill.
Right.
We haven't gone down to the crash, so we're not chasing this market at all.
Okay.
Other than we are building cooling technology for the industry, leveraging our immersion technology from our Bitcoin data centers, which is applicable to the AI space. And so we're addressing the market that way.
Can I pivot the conversation back a little bit to money supply, to monetary policy, to cryptocurrency as a whole? I know that you've been pretty active in the trying to get some basis on institutional adoption. And as an S-curve as well, I see that that's also a slow moving ship. I had a conversation with a client of mine who was high-level executive at a large insurance company, and it was pre-SBF blow up, and they were this close to saying yes on being able to accept payment for specific policies, so on and so forth. And the problem they had was the comfort of having it on the balance sheet.
Right. So